All right.
That's a bucket and a mop.
Yeah, I just remember that. Was it Wayne's World? If you have to spew into this. It's a little throwback.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to episode 87 of the Guardian Hub podcast, where we talk Destiny and our love of the game. We bring on different guests and communities to learn about them, their experiences in Destiny, and discuss other topics. And this evening, we have barely alive, but still enough to be here to podcast. We have me, your host, Kingsley Mack. We have Sin and Des Raven also as our hosts, and a special guest, which we'll introduce in a second. How are you guys doing tonight?
Not too bad. A little tired from the day one raid race yesterday, but it was fun.
You're tired?
Yeah. It's like a story of my life. I was off and I'm off for a week and still tired. How does that work?
It happens, right? Just because you're home from work doesn't necessarily mean you get more sleep, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. What about you, Des?
I as well participated in a day one. I had a surprise. My machine, or the machine I would normally run on Saturday, was running out of material, and it wouldn't get there until Sunday. So they decided not to run Saturday. So I got to bang my head against the wall that is day one rating.
Well, we'll definitely want to hear a lot more about that in a second.
Oh God!
And otherwise, you're feeling okay, other than the staying up late sickness.
Yeah, I mean stomach bug, bull crap. Which, yeah, banging up till like 2:30 in the morning, banging your head against an encounter that but for some reason things suddenly aren't working anymore. It was still fun though. I mean, it's just, yeah. Ugh.
So what about this special guest, Kingsley?
Well, we have back for the third time on our show, special guest, part of the Hoot Dawg gaming clan, Mr. Clearnite. Thanks for coming back again on our show.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah,
it's always a good time to come back.
Like it was about a year, so
I actually
we're just gonna have to keep that schedule.
That's yeah, because more than that is just gets a little too much of Clearnite. I'm just kidding. there's such a thing as like pacing.
Yeah, pacing. Right? It just keeps it easy. Here's the secret, folks. We don't have like some great plan out of like guests for weeks in advance. We usually kind of do this on the fly. I was just trying to say maybe I should try to be more scheduled and just say, okay, a year from here we have Clearnite. A year from here we have Snow. But anyways, man, how have you been doing since the last time we talked to you? What is new? Just even not in the game. Just what have you been up to? Life, everything, whatever.
Doing well. I mean, I was actually I didn't do a day one raid, but I was up early. I had some work maintenance, unfortunately, I had to do at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So I had to set my alarm. So I was up playing late, some other games, and just because with Elmer and the crew, we're on Gunbait, myself and Death, we're playing Deep Rock Galactic, and so that was actually a real fun time. But we didn't get done till probably like maybe 1:30 or so. And then I ended up jumping into a couple little other things, Destiny, and then I started watching some streams, of course. And so, it was like 2:00 and such. I'm like, all right, well, setting my alarm. This is going to be it. And with those sort of wake up calls, I go into, we have a guest room, and since we didn't have any guests, I was able to stay in there, so I wouldn't have to wake my wife or kids or anything like that when my alarm goes off, which has a tendency to happen. So I'm feeling it too a little bit today. And just one of those days where it's like not a lot of sleep, and I don't tend to get a lot of sleep on a general time, because this is my time to play games or do podcasts or whatever I'm actually going to do, watch videos, things like that. So, but it's been good. I mean, since we last chatted, I've actually, back before the lockdown, back in March, I moved. So that was a big thing early in the year. So thankfully we did actually move, and that was a process. That kind of was causing some fun with various things. But we finally got that done, and it was literally the Thursday before Pennsylvania locked down. So it was the March 12th. So it was like I sold my old house on my birthday, which was back in March 11th, and then on March 12th is when we moved into the new house. So, and then on the following, whatever that Monday was, 15th or something, that's when they said, all right, working from home. It's like, okay. So, and I was able to kind of set up the home and all that kind of thing. So it's been good and bad, obviously, for various reasons. But one of the nice things, at least for my occupation, I can work from home as a technology guy. So that's not too much of a thing.
And he's still working from home for the most part?
Yeah. I mean, we have not, I've gone into the office once or twice just to go into our server closet, because I manage a lot of the, but honestly, we don't really have servers. We're all cloud-based. So it's really just kind of going in there, checking, make sure nothing's blowing up. And it's really just routers. So me, I'm not really in the office at all. I can pretty much do most everything at home anyway. And even if I'm in the office, I'm kind of working in the cloud anyway. So it's been good. And our company has been one that can actually sustain without too many issues. Obviously, a few challenges, but generally speaking, we're trying to get government to go to more digital, so that in some ways it's been helpful. In some ways it hasn't. So it's just one of those things. But we can do things remote.
It kind of pushes the issue, right? I feel
in some ways, yeah.
If this would have happened like 10, 20 years ago, we would be nowhere we were today, being able to Zoom meetings as easily in cloud servers and everything like that.
Yeah, we'd have to use Skype or something. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah.
I like throwing that little joke in there. Go to meeting, all those kind of fun things. But yeah, no, you're right though. Performance-wise, I think of that. Even with games being back, old school kind of things, having the baud modems and stuff. I think my first modem was a 1200 baud. So, anything beyond that back in the day, coming up to now is just amazing to see what you can do on everything. So it's been good. So just kind of keeping safe. Everybody's been good. Had a few minor scares with just people that we've known, but everybody else been healthy in the house. Actually, as of today, my wife had to take a COVID test because one of her coworkers was tested positive for it. So today was a little bit of a stressful day, just because she hasn't had any symptoms, and she hasn't seen that person for about 8 or 9 days because they've been out and waiting for a test result. But she got the rapid result today, so she went in, took my son in with her for something else we can get to, but. She got hers done, but she was there for 3 or 4 hours, and then eventually got the result negative. So it's good. So she just has to kind of keep quarantine the rest of the week just to make sure everything is good. But it doesn't help with the stress of the day, Yeah. So just to kind of bring in some real life. So that's why I always say gaming is my outlet, is my my escape, and that's always what I do in the evening. So just kind of chill and relax, and whether it's Destiny or other games, I'll play. So it's been good.
Yeah. And so before we talk about more Destiny and, a little later on in the episode, what are some of your favorite, you can tell us all the games you played, but what would you say some of the best games within the last year that you've really enjoyed?
The two, there's probably 2 or 3. When we last chatted, I think I was getting into American Trucker, which I actually still do enjoy. Haven't played that in a few months, but that's a game that, especially when lockdown hit, I joke with people, but we talked about it last time too. I did a quick skim of what we talked about briefly last year, just because that's who I am. So I was curious to see what we were talking about, and so I listened to the episode a little bit earlier in the week and just kind of skimmed it. And so we were talking about the trucker game, and actually with the lockdown, with everything going in, that's one way if you want to get out and just hit the road or get out and escape. It's a pretty good game for that because it's just scenery and all that. And I've kind of been, maybe it's because of that, I've been playing a lot more exploration or sort of those kinds of games, because I play a lot of Sea of Thieves, although I've been a little bit of a break of that just recently. But I really got into No Man's Sky again. That's probably the biggest game in the last probably several months where I'll record or stream, has been No Man's Sky. Because that game has just come a long way, and I always like the story of how that came out. As many know, it wasn't heralded very well. If anything, was panned. And it's really I said a few years ago that it had its Taken King moment, but it's actually probably even surpassed that in terms of that game, in terms of how well it's just progressed and gotten beyond. So, and every month or two they keep coming up with something new. So got back into that in the summer, where they added some elements of, a little bit of alien type elements where you're going into these derelicts and exploring a la Alien. So that's been kind of neat. But those kind of games I played a lot of Ultimate Game Pass. I've been kind of going through that as something new comes on. I've been trying it out, or some older games even I've been trying out. So State of Decay 2 is another game that I was playing for a good solid 3-4 weeks for a while, and that was a game that I've kind of gotten over the sort of like the zombie crunch games. Like after a while, for me at least, I got tired of those. But I didn't realize what that kind of game was. It's actually a lot of strategic elements to it, and an open world, and almost like base management. You're building up your base. You're kind of like doing things like XCOM, where you have like a team of squad. You're sort of assemble and go out on different adventures and pick up food and other things and do different things and work a la Walking Dead style, where you're kind of going out meeting the different clans and stuff. But then you lose a player and they're dead, or they get sick, and they turn. And so it's like you can't get too attached to a particular player too long unless you really try and keep them protected. So it was actually a pretty good stint for that. So I've been kind of going through that. So that's another one I spent a lot of time on. So, but just been hitting a few different things. I did go through the Baldur's Gate 3 early release. I was playing that a lot up to a point where the content kind of started to dry up a bit because they are still in early release. Really good game, really buggy as hell. I had, and you kind of expect it. I even had a save game where I just got corrupted and I had to restart again, which is fine, because it's interesting because you can kind of go through, played a different type of character. When I regenerated, it went kind of crazy and did something different. I started with like a rogue, and I went to like more of a cleric or magician and stuff, and started playing that route, and changing who you are and how you answer things dramatically changes the plot line and the storylines and the dialogue and the options you have. So they definitely have a good track of what they're doing, even more so than like Dragon Age or Mass Effect. They have that, it has that kind of feel to it, but with also having the old Baldur's Gate and D&D rules and stuff, which is kind of neat. So that's been good. So but yeah, that's been kind of like the snippet of things. But I got into like Ark for a while. I was playing that, like another one of those open world sandbox games, and I didn't tend to do those for a while, but I think maybe just with everything, I just needed a change of pace. And the other thing is with the kids have been good, but just with everything, it's been a little bit more inconsistent at night of what time they can kind of fall asleep or other sorts of things, or how much I have energy. So there's times where like I'll go put them to sleep and then I'll end up falling asleep where they are. And then next thing I know, I wake up, it's like, okay, it's 12 o'clock. All right, well, I'm going to do something. So it's like hard to play with groups, and clans and stuff too often when you have like an inconsistent, schedule. Everybody's already grouped up at that point. So I've been kind of doing some more solo stuff. But but then last night, I grouped up with Elmer and Gunbait and Death, and we played Deep Rock Galactic, which is a hella fun game for co-op. If you haven't seen that or tried that, that's been streamed a few times over the months and stuff. But that game is a lot of fun on co-op, and anything's fun with Elmer, but and Gunbait and stuff. But that game especially fits the character there too. A bunch of dwarves that are dancing and singing and.
Oh man,
mining for whatever, fighting back aliens and escaping. So
that game.
Yeah, and it's free. Like, it's the thing I keep going back to, is like the Ultimate Game Pass, man. It's great value there, and it's great for somebody who can play a lot of different games if you're really kind of dedicated. I kind of heard Gator talk about it on your fellow friend podcast, and how he kind of doesn't see the value as much because he plays Destiny a lot, right? Like, there's a joke about the drinking game. Like, if he plays anything besides Destiny, take a sip, right? But like for that type, no, it's definitely not a value, because if you're just playing one game, and then that was me also for a while. But in the last,
it's a value now on Xbox because you get Destiny.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like when that came up, I'm like, whoa, score there, and eventually they will get it to the PC. I know there was a question I think you had and others had in the.
I think
the
they said
stuff.
They're hoping sometime next year.
Yeah, and that's probably the crossplay. Like that's probably where the crossplay will probably hopefully be coming around that way too, because that's how they'll do it. They'll do it like kind of the opposite of what Halo and Sea of Thieves and some other games and Gears of War have done, where they were on Microsoft and they came to Steam, and they brought all that over. It's kind of going the reverse, right? It's going from Steam over and being available on the DRM for Microsoft. But it's all going to be cross-play there as well, and then hopefully it'll also add the consoles into the mix. At least the current or the new generation. I'll say current at the time, but it'll be the new generation at that point, because you want 60 frames plus versus 60. You don't want the 30 frame stuff. So, in terms of fairness and all that. So, but no, it's been good.
And on that news, we heard that supposedly in Crucible they might even get it up to 120 frames. Is what I was hearing on the news. So that's pretty cool news.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, depends what, it's the whole frames versus resolution thing. I mean, I like obviously trying to go for the highest frames, but I have a 4K television, but I don't have a 4K monitor. So for me, most of my games, I'm okay playing 1440 or even 1080 is still even fine on some of the stuff, depending on what I'm doing. And I'm good with that. I'm always one who would rather have better frames and fidelity within the resolution than the resolution itself. Because after a point, it's like, okay, it's great, but then I start bumping up the font if it allows me to do it, or bumping up the UI scale, or some of these games allow you to do, because the fonts start getting a little small with my older eyes. So it's like, it's like, what does that say? What does the buff say? It's like, I can't read it.
You're not getting old, are you?
You sit there and squint for a bit. It's like,
We're only supposed to make that joke about Gator.
Right. Yeah, he's still got the edge on that one, as I've joked with him, but I'm not too far off from him. So
I know we always have Gator to turn to. If
yeah, Gator's always the old man, so it's all right.
Maybe Gator, you, then me. It's probably somewhere right on there for the age differences.
Mm-hmm. But so that's definitely the case. But it's been fun, and that's the thing. Like you said, and Destiny came out for it, and that's a huge score for them. I mean, in some ways, for Crucible, it's bittersweet in some ways, I guess, because then you start bringing out a different element, although it is still console versus PC. But you still end up having, I think Steam was probably the biggest boom in terms of numbers and such, and obviously platform. But still, you get Xbox Pass players. You start seeing those come in, and I don't know what they're called. Like we used to call the Taken King, Taken Tots and stuff like that. I don't know if there's a phrase for the new ones, the new light. Some things I haven't heard that yet.
Something. No, I know. There's
Xboxers, or I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. So
yeah,
but it's definitely interesting.
Mm-hmm. I picked up a new Xbox myself, and I haven't hopped into it too much because until they turn on, December, they'll be turning on the higher frames in the field of view. So right now it's still,
December 10th.
But I did sign up for the Xbox Games Pass Ultimate and loaded Destiny on my new Xbox, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it loads fast, everything's ready to go. I'm just waiting for the rest, and really just waiting for some people to play with and raid with. That's one of the reasons why I got it on Xbox. But it's really quite exciting that it's just kind of all over the place. And boy, once they get the crossplay, I hope that's sometime before next fall, but it could be as late as fall. But
yeah, I mean, and you got the S, right? I think if I remember, you were looking at the S, Xbox Series S itself. So
it's
and that's a and that's a great that again is a great value. You get 2 years of you get the full year, and I did a spreadsheet, of course, because that's just me. And I was just looking at the math. It's like basically you're buying the console, at bare minimum cost, and you're paying 2 years worth of the pass. Like I've been getting deals on the pass. So like one of the things I will give a hot tip on is I was able to get through with like the $1 to extend my Game Pass and stuff for a while, and then I got another deal on Amazon where it was like buy 2 months get one free. And so I'm always the one who kind of like can find these. And then I'll go to CD Key, for some people don't like CD Key, but I'll do it for something like this. And I got another 3 months here for the price of really like 1.5 to 2 months. So I really haven't paid full price for it, but even with the full price, it's a great deal. Like, the 2 years worth of Game Pass. Man.
Yeah, there's a lot more games on console right now than PC, and obviously they'll load more eventually on PC side too.
Yeah,
but I think it's worth it. I mean, because you got to at least pay for the gold anyways, which is what, $10 by itself. So it's if you're paying monthly versus if you're doing a deal. So you might as well pay the $10, $15 for the Game Pass Ultimate, get it all.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think they're going to, the only thing that's always confusing about it is the naming. I still think they do need to rebrand it because Xbox Game Pass for PC really doesn't make any sense.
And like Series S, Series X, and all the naming.
I get it's funny. I get what they're doing there because they want to kind of start doing series whatever letters, although picking S and X is a bit weird, but because they just probably, somebody got fired. This for somebody who's like, wait a second. So we have something that's called the Xbox One X. Yeah. And then we've got the Xbox Series X. It's like, It's like, you don't see an issue here.
Series S.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, yes. And then you have an Xbox One S. Yeah.
And then the Series S.
Could you pick another letter, please? J or F you wouldn't want to do because that's bad. But like, you pick another letter, like V or something. I don't get it. And V could have been like 5 or something. I don't know. I don't get
Windows 95, 98, then Windows 2000, then Windows 7 and 8.
Yeah, anemone and stuff. Yeah, I don't
But
know.
Apple has been crazy at times too with their numbering, so it
Yeah,
happens everywhere.
yeah. No, I mean it's all just
Except for
marketing. Eventually,
PlayStation. They're like the only ones that have
so like
stayed.
we're just numbering it. We'll call it
Yeah.
PlayStation 15. We don't care. You know, they don't. It's like they really don't. It doesn't really matter. People are going to buy it anyway. It doesn't matter what it's called. You know, they just look for the highest number. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's one of the things I've been kind of holding off on getting new one. I really want one, and I really did. I was looking at the S's. I did look casually and see if I can kind of get one, but especially the Access Pass or whatever it's the Access Pass, right? I think it's called, where you get
All
the
access,
console
yeah.
all access. I'm looking at that, but that's one of the things that's been hard to find really around here, even online. I haven't been one that's been aggressive enough to try and find it. Although I will every once in a while check when there's like a midnight, like, hey, somebody just tweeted out that it's available on Walmart.com. I'm like, okay. I'll try it, and then I'm like, nope, that was like 20 minutes too late, you know, kind of thing. So I haven't really been able to kind of get that, and so eventually,
I
though,
heard that they both Sony and Microsoft said they may not be able to keep up with demand until next spring for both of the systems.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and you can see that. And that's if you look traditionally at the console launches, maybe not quite as severe as that, you know, but especially with Sony. Sony's always been historical for, I mean, I think I've talked about other times where I end up having like 2 PlayStation 2s one time because I bought them off of auctions because somebody screwed me over. Like I bought it off of like Outpost.com or something, and they sent me a letter like a month before PS2 launched. It's like, yeah, you're not going to get it. Sorry. I'm like, what? So I ended up doing like 2 auctions where they both won. So just ended up paying like double for what the damn thing was at the time. And that was the last time I've done anything like that again. But they always tend to have that sort of thing. It's that new demand and that fresh new feel, right? So, but you're not really going to get as much bang for your buck until next year anyway for most of those.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I'm sure there's people that have been super antsy to get one, but I feel like the overall population's more chill this time around. I mean, everyone would love to get a new Xbox or Series or PlayStation or whatever, but you know, we're kind of realizing, yeah, I mean, when I get around to it, when they're more available, and you know, have some money saved and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, the last time I waited in the line was like I think for like a Wii Fit or something. You know, like I'm not waiting in lines. I just don't. Well, especially not now. But like even then, I'm not a person who's going to wait in line or do a midnight like launch kind of thing. I'd rather just get it, and if I can get it, great. But you know, if I don't, then that's just like I'll upgrade my PC, and I've been doing more PC stuff more recently anyway, so it's been fine.
Yeah, speaking of, we both have the 5700 Carter. Are you eyeing any of those 6000 series that just came out?
I do until I see the price tag. It's like just justification. It's like, and what I'll do is I'll go to the hardware comparisons, and I'll look at the chart and say, all right, what is it really rated to do faster? It's like 10 to 20%. It's like, okay, probably not worth it. If it starts to get, I went from a 1050 Ti to 1060, had 2 different machines, and I got the 5700 at the time. And that was a big jump. That was a double or 60% in most cases, and probably like double frame rate jump, right? So that was a big deal, and that was a good price. I do eye them. I keep them, aware. But, with kids and stuff like that, it's like, it's not like back in the day where I was bleeding edge. I used to be bleeding edge. I can't be bleeding edge anymore. Yeah. I'd have his shit to hunt front if I had bleeding edge.
Yeah, I'm too. I'm like maybe sometime next year at the earliest, I'll eye like the lowest end 6000 series or something.
Yeah, and they look good. They definitely look good. But for what you're, if you're going from like a 1060 or 1050, probably a good jump. But from a 5700, it's probably not as it's a significant jump, but it's not as significant enough to warrant it. And what games are gonna really take advantage of it a lot of times too? You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of newer games, but like when Cyberpunk comes out, I'm sure that's going to be one that like Witcher did and like Crysis and others did before. Like they probably will push the edge. People will try and run it in Ultra, and then they'll learn, don't play it in Ultra. Go to whatever you can do and be whatever you're comfortable with, and then you'll eventually get there. So that's how you have to kind of play that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been happy with my 5700. I mean, on 1440 in Destiny, I'm typically worst case scenario 70 frames per second, usually like best case around 120. So
yeah, it's funny though, like right before all this, and we've talked about the SSD thing and all, and obviously that's a huge jump. One of the things I also did is because Destiny, every time I was launching it in the last few months, it just seemed to be always too slow. Like I was always the last person loading into the raid or whatever I'm doing. I'm like, why is this the case? And I've got high end Samsung SSDs and stuff. It doesn't make any sense. And then I started looking at it, and then I had an extra. I was going to upgrade my laptop at one point with one of the M2 SSDs, and I just never did. So I ended up realizing I was looking around on my motherboard. I was like, hey, wait, I have a slot for this. So when I did that, I actually put a speed checker and all this kind of stuff. I know we're getting a little technical here, but it's just like this is actually a really good boom. If you've got an M2 like slot for SSD, if you want to have a nice bump, that will give you a nice bump. You thought SSD was a good bump? That's an even better bump because it went like 4 times faster. Like it was like if I was getting like 500, meg or gig, speed wise, I was getting like two gig on that time span. So
there's SSD and then there's SSD. And
yes,
there's a big difference.
And there is.
Glad the new PlayStation and Xbox are using the M. Mm-hmm. Well, they're using basically an equivalent to M2 on board super fast SSD.
Yeah, they're using M3. I think their new technology, right? And their proprietary M3, which is kind of like their own shade of the M3. So, and that's why they're able to get those speed differences. I mean, but it was funny though. The only thing I did wrong was I did it at the same time that I uninstalled and reinstalled Destiny on PC, just because I needed to. Like I just needed to clean it out, and it was acting really goofy. I was getting a lot of game and validation checks and stuff warnings. I was like bombing out a lot. I'd load into EDZ and just like bomb out. And it was like, this weird error that would come up and it basically ends up being something corrupted. So I saying, well, let me put it on this and let me just uninstall it. And that happened to be the same where the patch came out where it was like, okay, we're going to load faster. So I can't tell like if half of it is really just the new update to Beyond Light being, much faster to do the load screens because they've optimized that, or if it's the M2 as well. Because I know other games it's been faster. So I know the M2 is definitely making a lot of the difference. But like I did a lot of that. So it's just like it's been super fast now. I'm coming in. I'm like, oh damn, tower just loaded. Like I used to be able to go out, get a piece, get something to drink, go use the restroom, something like that. I come back. I'm like, oh, I'm still flying. So
yeah, I think
now
performance is better, right? Yeah, or Des, isn't everyone even saying on PS4 things seem a little bit better with Beyond?
Oh yeah, PS4 is like super faster now. With the, I mean, there was that issue in the tower, well, especially on console, where if you tried to cross the threshold on the stairs back to like the central part of the tower, you'd get caught in that loading screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Nice.
Like if my connection tanks, like for a hot moment because of server or ISP traffic or whatever,
yeah,
I'll hit that loading zone. But otherwise, it's all like smooth transitions. Like strikes load so much faster. I'm flying in minute maybe. Like things are good, even on console side.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone tried yet in the tower that new feature where you can join a fire team in the tower or leave when you're even in a different tower instance? It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have not.
You don't go to orbit and back. And even when you leave, it was wild. I was with a group the other day, and then I left their instance of the tower, but it kept me in the tower. I see them as blueberries now. It was wild. It was just so instant, where before you'd have to go to orbit and join their tower,
Right. I've done it where I've met up with like, Dino or whoever in Hoot and I was, at the tower and I would join up and I probably didn't really realize it that you're right. I don't go to orbit, but it's immediate. Like it's almost like a fast travel. It's how fast it is, I think. It's just like almost like you fast travel from, the annex to the front area and such. So that's probably the equivalent of that size. But yeah, it does make a big difference. So it's funny because
tell them to build a new engine. It's so much better.
Yeah, 3.0 engine, nailed it.
But it is better, honestly.
Yeah. Although
what,
it's funny. What's the there's the one strike though in on Nessus still friggin' loads. It's the Terminus one.
Oh yeah.
There's that one spot where you're going in the cave. I was with and Jake and myself, and we were loading up the first night. I'm like, all right. Oh, wait, it didn't do it. Ah, damn it. It still did it. But it was faster, but it still did the damn pause on that same spot where we're going down that cave. I'm like, come on. What is that?
The worst spot in Destiny.
Yes. I mean, it used to be a pace where like, all right, I'm floating. I could do a little dance or whatever. I'm floating, and then it would load. Now it's like, it still pauses, but you notice it now. It's like, because you don't see any of that loading anymore. But it's like, really, guys? Come on. Fix it. Come on, Bengo.
Oh man!
But if we're complaining about those things, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's talk about the new DLC, which I assume you've been able to experience some. We'd just like to know your general thoughts on everything, whatever order you want. Talk about the story, talk about any side things you've done, new super, just general impressions.
Yep, no, definitely. I mean, it's funny because you reached out and saw that I was playing, because for a while, I've this last season or this last year, I probably was my least playing of Destiny in the last year. Like I always come back because you always come back to Destiny, but my breaks were longer and longer. So even with every season, I would always come back every season to kind of come back, and then I would be like, yeah, this isn't working for me, and then I would come back. You know, it's no fault, it's just me. There's a point where you just, when you get fatigued from any game, you need to just stop, try something else, come back, and it'll be fresh. So I kind of did that a lot more with this one. I mean, I didn't do any of the Festival of the Lost this year, because that was really last year where I got burnt between Shadowkeep and doing a lot of the Armor 2.0 builds, and I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And the Vex Offensive, and then the loot grind in the Festival of Lost, that burned me out, because after that, I really couldn't do the same grinds again. Like, I would come back every time, but like, I'm like, no. Like, to a point where I was even frustrated with, it wasn't probably until the season of the Arrivals, and right before that, the season before that, but the one with the towers and the damn mechs that come in, like, I couldn't play that at all. I hated that event. I was rage. I was like, this is just not for me. I'm not playing this. So I did very little in that season of the Seraphs. So now that I'm getting all the Seraph stuff, I'm kind of happy, because I did get a few good God rolls back then. But after that, I was like, all right, got my roll, I'm moving on. I just couldn't do the whole, all the stocks and stuff. I didn't even do any of the stock stuff. I just couldn't. That's where my mind space was. But I'm much better with that. Like right now, when I come back to a new DLC and new other things, I'm like, all right, new outset, do all this stuff. Loving the campaign. Thought the storyline was good. Obviously we always want it longer. I always like that, but it's definitely worlds above Shadowkeep in my mind. I mean, Shadowkeep was okay, but definitely, the coolest thing about Shadowkeep is that we saw the pyramid and we went inside the pyramid ship. That was probably the coolest thing about it. And then I did like actually the grind of the Shadowkeep, the weapons. I actually enjoyed that bounty system and the way that they did the whole, go out and get the 3 different things and kill these things and you get the different weapons. And I like most of the weapons. I got some really good weaponry there. So that's, and I'll get back to that point. We'll bookmark that. But everything else after that, I was like, the grind just wasn't working for me. So I took a break. But coming back, I've been really enjoying it. Europa, I think you probably on the same page as I am in terms of this year. I bought the standard edition and the season pass, right? So I didn't go the full out. This is the first year I've never gotten the full season pass, because last year I really didn't get my money's worth or my own play value of the season pass. I'm like, I'm going to wait, and I'm probably going to pay it, but you know what? There's no discount anyway to do it. So I'll just wait, because I just don't feel like, depending on how it goes. But I will say this season has been really good. And when the season of the hunt started as well, I was actually curious about that when the first, I think as everybody was like, when is this starting? And then obviously Aldrin and the Crow coming back and such. So the story has been stellar. I've been loving this, the storyline and everything with that. And Europa is just amazing. Like, it harkens back to me, not even shades of Forsaken, but like it has a lot of the secrets and stuff that I think in my mind of what you're seeing there. And you're starting to see that creep out now, right? With all the different shards and things like that you're looking for. So I'm enjoying that part of it. I will say the lure hunts, I got to a point where I raged the other night because I just wasn't enjoying them. So I think that's probably one of the grinds that I'm not going to enjoy the most. I like the hunts of the Europa hunts and such, but I'm not really feeling the Tangled Shore and the other area.
Oh yeah, the Wrathborn ones.
I'm not feeling the Wrathborns. Like, I don't know. I think in some ways, if we maybe talk about it later, but just
where we're going to go with those. They are kind of just
the mechanic to me confuses me too, because they really feel like they're meant to be solo. And the reason why I say that is because you start the event in public and everybody's helping, and you do that and you get the servitor or whatever down to like 10% left, right? And then you have to chase it down, which is a cool mechanic. I think that's kind of cool. Shades of Monster Hunter. I played a little Monster Hunter too in the laps, and that was a lot of fun. And so that was neat, going around. And I want to see how often do this actually change, because the first 2 I think I hit, it kept going to the same spot in the horn, right? So I was like, all right, well, but then it started to move elsewhere. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But then when you go to the actual flag and then you load it up at instances, and that's kind of neat, but if you don't have that instance and you're in the fire team, you're kind of playing that for loss. You're kind of like individualized. And it just feels like it's a small, especially the first couple areas, they all feel very small areas, like very, not, even the one on the out in the other planet. Why am I breaking off? Not Tangle Shore, but the Forgotten City, Dreaming City ones. Those are a little bit bigger, but they still feel really small and compressed. Like, not that you'd have a full fire team in those. So, and they were challenging. I actually did a tier 2 against the Wizard that has the mechanic, like the strike mechanic from and that's the thing that I started to rage at. Become like, this is a little frustrating because it's like I was just kind of the respawn, not having to respawn there. Like, everything else was good, and then can't respawn in there. I can't see that getting much more complicated. Now, for me, I have to double check what the rating was on that, because at the time, right now I'm at like 1220 with artifacts, so 1213 without artifact. And I think those were all like 11 something. I don't know if they creep up into tier 2 if they go into like 1250. So I didn't notice. It wasn't telling me that I was dying to things that should have been 1250, but I'm wondering about that. So I think those are the ones that I'm kind of getting frustrated with. But everything else I've been loving. Like, I've been loving doing, the bounties on the Europa and exploring and finding things that I didn't even know what it does. Like, I ended up exploring one area where I killed a huge Vex contingent, and I had like this buff for 30 minutes ticking down. And I haven't actually looked into what this is, because I just did it myself. I've been kind of staying off of Reddit and some of the videos to kind of, not have some of those spoilers, and end up getting traced into an area where I'm going into like a Vex fight with something that's very much like how we got Lamarnark, on Nessus, where you were kind of like, jumping around on different platforms and trying to kill this thing. And then at the end, there's a chest. Nothing special in the chest, but still was cool that I had a buff. I had to figure out what I was doing. Went into this big cave, and I started doing that encounter. It was neat. You like shoot crystals, and another platform would appear, and you jump to that. And your basic goal is to kill the huge, Hydra in the middle. And it's one of those super mines, basically. So it's big Hydra. And you're jumping from platform to platform, using your super and recharging your super by jumping. So I thought that was cool. Like, I don't even know what that is yet. I haven't looked into the lore or whatever the background of that is, but I thought that was neat. And I mentioned it to like some of the guys, and they're like, no, I haven't seen that yet. And I just stumbled across it on like the second night. So it's those kinds of things that, to me, I've always loved when Destiny does that. So like, that's where I look to for them to kind of do more
exploration and secrets, right?
Yeah, more of that kind of stuff. And the exploration is really where I'm at a lot of these times.
I mean, where would you rate? I know Luke's, and I have an opinion too. We probably all do, but like, Luke Smith's famous line was, "This is somewhere in between Shadowkeep and Forsaken as far as size." And I mean, he didn't use any word other than size, but like, I'm curious what your opinion is, if you account size, secrets, just gameplay, everything. What closer side you put it to, or how you'd rate it?
I probably would say it's probably still closer to Shadowkeep in terms of size, and I kind of exclude the season, right? Because we have to. Sometimes we kind of bundle them together and we think about them, but we kind of have to bundle the seasons away, right? Yeah. So I think it's definitely more expansive than the Shadowkeep, because, and I think for the main reason is the landscape. We were on the moon, and I love the moon. Loved going back to the moon. Very nostalgic, and actually even what they did with the moon, I thought was great. I like what they did. But we've already kind of explored it, and there's not like that new feel to it, new feel exploration. There's not really anything in there that we haven't seen. Doing the hunts for some of those different components that these big knights and other things drop down there for the weapons, that was kind of neat to kind of do it. But that there was nothing really new there. I think so. What makes it feel a lot bigger is Europa is huge. Like, I was worried about that, and then once I saw the map and then I started playing, I was like, okay, this is sweet. This is really, really good. Because I think a lot of us were like, well, how big is it really? Like, is it really bigger than the Cosmodrome? Because that's kind of like our, or Dreaming City. Is it bigger than Dreaming City? And to me, I definitely think it, I mean, we haven't seen everything yet, but like, I think it is in many ways. So maybe the landscape doesn't change as much.
Huge area that opened up yesterday. In the Bray Exoscience area, you can go into creation, and the creation area is huge. I don't know if you've explored it yet.
Not since the raid. So one of the things I'll say, this weekend's been a busy weekend, so I always try and go in a little bit blind to the raid because we haven't had a chance to kind of assemble yet, but I would piece together and I would look at it. Even when you watch a stream, it's kind of hard to see what the mechanics are when you're watching. Just for me, at least, even when I used to watch Kingfall back in the day, it's like, I have no idea what the hell is going on, but this is really cool looking. So I learned the mechanics, right? Like, this is neat. And I used to watch like Laced Up Lauren, and she would play it like every day, and I would watch it, and it's like, this is really cool. I still have no idea what the freaking mechanics are in this, but it looks really neat, right? So to some degree, I'm not getting a spoiler in terms of the mechanics necessarily until you watch like a video or Reddit or whatever. But I kind of stayed away from it for a little bit, and I would peek here and there and see some different encounters, but I kind of still a little bit, I saw enough to kind of give a read of my own. I know you guys dipped into it. We haven't yet. or I haven't yet. It kind of felt a lot like Wrath to me, in many ways. I don't know why, I just kind of had that feel. And
Well, we'll have opinions on that.
and I've heard that, yeah. And I'm okay with spoilers. Like I'm not like, oh, don't give me spoilers and stuff. It's just a lot of times the mechanics we've done it. Like we've gone into a first night, just kind of dip your toes in and see what kind of things are going on to figure out maybe what it is. And that's usually the fun, is figuring out the mechanic. And then eventually you optimize later for what the mechanic is. But, figuring out what the mechanic is always neat to kind of do. So I've always kind of stayed a little bit away from the raid race, kind of watch, just because I want to keep a little bit fresher for that. But I do peek in here and there. So, but that's my vibe. So I haven't gone back in yet. I haven't been able to load up the game since the raid started and opened up. So I heard that stuff opened up in that area. Like that's the other thing about Europa, is like the different areas, that it's not just the snow, but when you go underground in the Fallen area, it looks really neat. It reminds me a lot of the Fallen, villages and stuff. And you go into the Vex area, is very much Nessus feel to me. Same with sound, music, and design and stuff. Looks a lot like Nessus to me. Harkens back to that. A lot of the traveling around, traversing, reminds me of like, when you're going through the Plaguelands, just getting from point to point in terms of the look and feel, not the snow, but just like the layout of the tracks and stuff. And then you go into the Bray and you're like, wow, this is like the Mars areas, or, the new and old Mars is merging, and even more. So I thought that's been my favorite areas in there, just kind of going in there and you see all the little robots working with the chips. Like I actually just sat there one time and watched the robots do the things where they take out the memory cards, and actually I videoed myself like on one of the Roombas, just because you can actually, a little tip, if you haven't tried it, yeah. you can actually go on the Roomba and just like it'll move around and just it'll take you around a little bit, so that's the silly fun you kind of do. But the detail there, that's where Bungie always has excelled, is that little level of detail that most people are not necessarily going to notice. Those are the kind of things I look for and I really appreciate. So the fact that they opened a new area up there, that's great. And I think there's some new quest lines and stuff, so that's good.
And we're not even talking about Cosmodrome yet, but yeah, Europa is,
yeah. Oh yeah,
amazing. Better than I expected.
Yeah. So that was also my worry about, like, I also thought it was a little bit, when I did see the price tag, I'm not usually one that goes, oh, it's a little expensive. It's $10 more than it used to be. It's like, okay, it's their indie. They need to have more money. Then again, they are getting more money than they used to get with Activision per piece, but unit, but still, they're indie. They kind of need the money. I'm fine with that. But I don't think is it 10 in terms of, what was it, $39 to $49, I think, in terms of the base game, in terms of the expansion, that Forsaken was $39, and this doesn't have more than Forsaken in terms of, quantity. So you can't really do that equation. You can't do like, oh, this is $10 more, I should get $10 more of gameplay. It's like, well,
I know.
Everybody's going to get what they're going to get out of it, right? And the only reason I didn't get the season pass was the first time ever, and it was really even the last second decision. Like, well, let me see if I actually am going to play it, and is there any discount? No, there's not. Okay, fine. I'll just do it each season and see if I really do come back, because I was really concerned about it based on my experience this year. I didn't break 100 in 2 of the seasons, like, and I never not do that. You know what I mean? So like the last 2 seasons, even the season Arrival, I enjoyed some of the different mechanics. I actually enjoyed playing Gambit without the invaders. That was kind of cool. But even that, after a while, I can't grind the same thing over and over again. I'm more of an exploration guy, and then obviously, raiding and other things. So, but I think it's got good value.
Are you still Warlock maining? What do you think about the new supers?
So it's funny. So with Shadowkeep, because Bubbles came back, Shadowkeep was my year of Titan, which kind of actually parallels original Destiny, because year 1 Destiny, I was all Titan. Warlock. It was all Warlock main. And so when Taken King came out, boom, went right I saw hammers. I'm like, sold. So I'm like, fiery hammers of doom, awesome. Especially when they first came out, they were fiery hammers of doom. So I did enjoy that, and Bubble Bros and stuff. And then the third year, when they finally got the Void Hunter, I did play more of Void Hunter that year, but always kept them pretty up to speed and balanced. So really, Shadowkeep year, as I call it, really was a Titan main. I mean, I kept my Hunter. My Hunter was kind of my pack mule. I always teased it just because whatever reason. But like my Warlock was always my heart, was my change in my quest main. But in Shadowkeep, that kind of stopped. I actually was really doing a lot of Titan, and it's funny because this year I'm like, well, let me go back to my Warlock just to start it off, because it was my lowest. Out of all 3 of them, it was my lowest actually coming into this season. Like I was at, I remember what my light was now, so it was so many weeks ago, but I didn't break 1,000 with my Warlock. I was more than 750, but I was like maybe like 800 or 900, and that was just because I had weapons that I could give to it. It had nothing to do with armor. So I'm like, well, let me try this, and let me try the staff looks pretty cool. The super looks really cool, and actually, I'm going to save my Titan. That's actually was my mindset going into it, and saving my Titan. So I still actually have to come back with my Titan, but I've been playing my Warlock for this season so far. So I went Warlock, Titan, Warlock so far, but I really do like the concept of that barrier. So that's kind of what I was sort of saving it for, to see how it worked. And actually, I will say, as I was going through the campaign, and Sin will probably appreciate this more, I'm like, this would be probably a hell of a lot more fun and easier with my Titan, because I just put up a barrier or whatever, because I'm just, and then I tried my Hunter, and I was like, damn, I'm dying everywhere. I'm like, I suck at Hunter right now. I used to be really good at Hunter, but man, I'm just not dodging enough. It's like I keep getting hit. I'm dying. I can't see how I'm doing this. And I was going into the story campaigns at level. I wasn't under level, but I was kind of, when I was looking at it, a few times I had to grind, but I was pretty much at level. So if something was 1150, I was like 1140, 1150. So I was never really more than 5 under level, and they were challenging, but they weren't impossible. And I did most of them solo. I played with the guys on some other ones, and I joined up like Dino and some others on other nights. But when I went through the main storyline, as I usually kind of do, I kind of go, generally speaking, I tend to go through it solo first, and then I use my second and my thirds for grouping up with folks. So, but yeah, so it's been Warlock main, but I really will get back to my Titan too, because I think for whatever reason in this last year I've been kind of thinking more like Titan. So.
Yeah. Well, the Warlock super and PvE got nerfed a bit, and the melee, I'm a little salty about that. They had to do it in PvP. I understand that, but
yeah.
Oh my gosh, the range on the frozen bolts now is like nothing, and it's like you still have range with the solar one, so it's kind of annoying how much they nerfed it. Just take away the insta freeze. I would be fine with that, but I hate, it's like shotgun range now. It's crazy how much shorter.
How dare you still have like a 16-meter melee? Oh, poor Warlocks.
Oh, that's not that far.
That's ultimately when I played the alpha Destiny. That's why I ended up picking Warlock back in the day. I was like, okay, all right, here I'm playing, my Titan. I'm playing like Halo. Okay, I could punch like Master Chief. That's cool. All right, oh, Hunter, he's got a knife. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet. And then it's like, Warlock. I'm like, I'm a Jedi. I can,
right?
Like, come on. That's why I ended up maining Warlock. First year Destiny. That was just the way it was, and it was. You could just hit across the room and just breathe, especially as as Arc, but. Things change over time.
Yeah, well, I just wonder what they're going to do, because they still have the range on the solar one, and so maybe they should just have like less freeze power, but keep the range in PvE. And I don't know. But
well, and here's the thing: like, this will tell you how much Warlock I didn't play much this last year. Is the solar Warlock where they changed that grenade to like be pretty much chase you down to your house and kill you? That one, I actually forgot about that. I was like, what the hell is that? Oh, right, that's what the grenade they changed. All right, cool. Or that one, that solar tree that nobody ever picked, so they wanted to make people pick it. I still never picked it, and then because I always did Icarus dash, because of the type of dash I'd like to do in the air, and so I never really picked that particular branch, but that was kind of cool. So. And the only other feedback is that when you see the darkness, I'm like, okay, that UI, please put it on the light, because that's what we need. Because picking individually is what we need, So I know it'll be harder to balance the stuff, and I know that's what they're teasing us with, that they'll eventually give us the additional 2 more, darkness classes, is what everybody's kind of assuming. I kind of agree with, but we need to have that individualized selection of it as well, so that we're not like. Choosing the really crappy this type of melee or grenade, and you lose off on like Icarus dash. Like I want to always be able to have my Twilight Garrison on my Warlock. You know what I mean? So
well, maybe it'll come, but yeah. Well, feel free and continue to speak up with like experiences you're having and stuff. But I wanted to move on a little bit to Des first, and then we'll talk about our experiences in the raid, and then we wanted to talk about a couple lore things. But
cool.
Des, what have you been up to? Did you hop in the raid at all?
Yes. Day one,
Tell us all.
Minutes after it actually started up. I was with the Guardian Down group, because they were playing PS4. Screw you, PC guys. But anyway.
Wait, Gator was even playing on PS4?
Yeah, yeah.
Did he complain?
No,
Okay.
I mean,
See,
but then again, I was also in the party, so
Gator not complaining. The story doesn't check out. Come on. Sorry. Love you, Gator.
Go on.
But so we had a few people. No, yeah, it was Gator. It was Larman, Kentucky, Anubis, something or another. Crap, I met a bunch of new people.
Anubis
Either way,
Falls. Yeah, I haven't played.
yes, there we go.
Larry's cool.
But yeah, like, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting so many people, but oh, yeah, and like I said, many of them it was the first time I had played with. So it was understandable that it took us a while to like mesh, because I mean, except for the GTC guys themselves, like I said, I was kind of the odd man out on that one. But I think we got together, loaded into it. At first, obviously, what commented upon the familiarity of the desolation area, akin to what the abyss in Crota,
Yeah.
which
With sparrows.
is pretty nice. I know, right? So exploring through that area was super fun, though. I really enjoyed it.
Did you have anyone run out and be like guinea pigs first to say, "Oh, it's not this way"?
Oh yeah, for sure. There was like our main strategy at one point in time was whenever we found a new bubble, like Larman or Larry would stay in that bubble, and we would just like branch out in different directions until someone found the right way. With Larry reviving people there,
Yeah, staying back, anchoring.
Yeah. So yeah, it was it made it like super fun. Like that level of like exploration and everything. And then we made it to the first real encounter of the raid, which I don't want to say, I mean, because I made a prediction that I didn't really tell anyone because I didn't want to say it out loud. But I did make a prediction on how this raid was going to feel. And at least for the first encounter, because I mean, we knocked our head against the wall. The group broke up a couple hours later. Because people had things to do, but we were able to get back together later that night. And like I said, suddenly things that we were doing just weren't working anymore. So we had to bang our heads across like new problems that because it was hilarious. We got to we almost finished the first encounter.
Nice.
Like doing our method, which I know I think there's one important part that we were working around that people are saying that you had to do, but we didn't need to for whatever reason. But all of a sudden, it just wasn't working anymore. Like what we were doing, what we had been doing for hours, just was not working anymore. So we ended up falling out again a few hours later, and yeah, we just couldn't break that barrier of the first encounter, sadly.
Well, what'd you think about like, the room and the environment?
Close.
Oh, that's good.
Oh my god. Oh, I love like the symmetry of everything, and I don't know, it seems like, at least from that room, it seems like a really good raid design, but it so totally puts me in mind of Wrath of the Machine, like just from that first encounter, and which was my
one too. Wait till you
Just
see
say,
more.
yeah, no problem with that.
yeah, exactly, and that was my prediction for some reason, because I read I read who the encounters were, and I read the importance of the second encounter. And it's like, for some reason, this is giving me Wrath vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they're going to make the
reason.
raid feel like Wrath. And then, sure enough, like I said, at least that first encounter feels very similar, like, in style of mechanics to Vosik.
Mm-hmm.
But, like I said, I can't say much further because, like I said, we rammed our heads against that wall, and it just didn't quite work. But not like I said, I love the like the feel of everything. There seems to be I don't know. Also for that, like for the way a lot of the mechanics work in the at least in the first encounter, it kind of seems like there's less like randomness in like the way things spawn and such, because on how
Correct.
like what
Oh,
like
yeah.
vault and something like key critical things would spawn randomly on certain areas, so you would have to have like multiple people assigned to know these specific roles. But at least for day one, it like a lot of things seem to be happening entirely consistently, so we can get people like in that one role basically, and like have them learn that. So I think I really like that feel, which again kind of feels like Wrath to me. But and like I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because Wrath was like for D1 raids, that's like it's either that or oh god, it's almost it's hard for me to say what in my top three, because it's either going to be Vault, King's Fall, or Wrath, like as my favorites. But those are definitely my top three. But that might change depending upon exactly when I say it, or how I'm feeling, or if the nostalgia is hitting me hard enough.
Yeah.
Well, the layouts of these rooms are amazing. The first one I wanted to talk about a little bit too, and then I want to hear Sin's opinions for like what we were able to get done or not get done. But on this first room, I just love the layout. I mean, first of all, it's more like that Bray science looking facility.
Yes.
The one side you have all these tubes, the other side you have all these like server racks and stuff. Not quite, but like server type columns, and then you have areas where you look underground underneath the servers, and then there's a third area, Clearnite. There's an underground area too. And so the team kind of splits up in three areas. It's such an awesome arena. I love it.
Yeah.
It looks cool. It's a fun encounter where once you get the groove of it, and then those columns open up where you got to shoot the the things in the middle. Is just so fun. And you call out what side they're on, and then you can either have people run over to the other side to help out, but you don't always need help. So there's a lot of fluidity to it. I think what you're saying is exactly right, Des. Like, people can just do certain positions more, but you can also help and do other things. It's like there's a lot more like almost flexibility, if that makes sense, too.
Yeah.
That sounds good, actually, because that's the one observation I would say is in recent raids. I like every raid has its own sort of characteristics and pros and cons, but one of the things I've always felt in the last few series of raids and raid layers is that they're getting very picky, and that you're kind of stuck in a certain sort of way of playing it. So having like a little bit of a difference in roles is nice, because it just like Last Wish is a good one. It's like that right now is still my favorite. Like, even with all the other ones that you've listed are all amazing, but that still kind of keeps up because of just the epicness and the lore, and also just the mechanics I like. And it never seemed really too picky for me. That's one of the things I would say is, and it's weird to say that, but it's like some of the recent raids just seem really picky to me in terms of like the final boss, so that the raid encounters up to the boss have been really good. And then between, the different ones, it just seems like you make one minor mistake and the whole thing just blows apart. That's you kind of expect that when you first play a raid or two. But even if you're playing with a group that's just very experienced and that happens, it gets frustrating, and it's hard to bring new people through it too. That's the other thing I always look to see is, how is this going to be for us to play through? But then how is it going to be there to kind of, give new people who don't raid too often a good experience, right? So that's, and everything I've heard has said is high mechanics, but we'll see. It's too early to say with this one, but it just sounds
the
positive. The
second encounter is pretty picky, Clearnite, but I still think we can get through it. I don't know. I mean, it's a new watch. In a month, we'll say it's easy, right? But
well, it's like Spire, right?
Is pretty picky, but
exactly.
Like Spire was really a ball buster in the very beginning, right?
Right,
and eventually,
and at the end,
it's like, okay, we can do this. Now I understand this. Okay, and we're high enough that we're not like dying. We're not worrying about surviving. We're just doing the mechanic. And I think that's the thing to get over raids in the very beginning is you have to get over I have to survive and do the mechanic, and then eventually you have to worry about like just doing the mechanic, right? And that's if you can get to that sweet spot where you're not worrying too much about dying too much, generally speaking, except for wipes or whatever, but you're getting the mechanic down. I think that's usually where a good raid fits. So.
Yeah. Hey, Sin, I want you to tell us, you can, our experiences also. I mean, we were banging our head against it some, but I also want you to tell us about the second arena and how interesting it is Tell us about this quote upstairs
the
area and what
second arena.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's I heard that's where a lot of people kind of got frustrated, was that second arena. It's pretty cool. It is also multi-leveled. So basically you have the main level, which I guess is still on Europa, and then you have basically a ship level to it. You have these escape pods or pods that when you activate them, it takes you up to the upper portion of the arena.
You're in freaking space at a space station.
Yeah,
you look out.
Professor Broman, I'm in space.
It's really cool.
I mean, it's to me, obviously we're in space because we're on these different planets, but it is cool because you go from the actual ground or the arena that you're in into space, and you actually get to fight inside the space station. And that was actually really cool. And you get to fight your first, I guess, boss, and have mechanics and DPS check. I don't know. I thought it was a cool experience, and unfortunately, a cool experience until we spent hours on it.
Yeah. Oh boy, this one's pretty involved. I mean, if you had to you don't have to give us all the details, but especially since you had, you were calling it the seeker role, but we had a couple of different buffs and debuffs. If you can kind of explain that some from what you remember. My head's mush.
Yeah. You have your scanner and your operator, basically. Scanner, I like to call the seeker.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it is. You're telling folks basically what to hit or trigger as far as these switches. Or in this case, you find out which replica you actually need to destroy. So that part was pretty cool. And, I just kind of go a little bit more into it. The fact that, I saw the raid today after the contest mode's off, and it looked much easier. So where we got stuck, I don't think will be much more. Will be a little bit easier going forward, basically.
Yeah. But okay, and this is where it really even starts to look more like Wrath, because you have 3 different sides with servitors that keep coming out, and you even have what the 2 levels and like the replicas of real ones, and if that's what you
it's also a little bit of that. That's what I heard. That one's a fake one, and it's something like that. I was like, oh, okay, it looks pretty interesting, and that definitely felt like a little bit of Wrath to me. It had a vibe of Wrath in terms of feel and look. Very dark.
The servitor. Are it's a big encounter or whatever, but still, we have the servitors and we have to call them out, and we got to take them down in a certain order and everything like that. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting, kind of fun. I always never thought I liked the Fallen a lot, but I guess I do like them in raids.
Yeah, raid wise, they're pretty interesting, and I think their lore is interesting too, especially when you start breaking them into clans and you think of who they were and their history. So I think that's always the cool thing. I always kind of like Hive stuff, but really, I mean, when I think back to it, some of the Fallen stuff has been really engaging as well. So I think they all have good.
Do we want to, I mean, a lot of people kind of know now. I mean, if anyone speaks up, if you don't want to know, but do we want to keep secret who the final boss is? I don't know anything about the encounter yet.
I feel we could wait a little bit.
Okay, we could wait a little bit, but I do want to mention, though, in between the first and second encounter, before you start the second encounter, you see a really cool thing where the boss of the second encounter is opening a pod, and you see someone very familiar.
Right.
So if you
which may also, to be fair, also to be fair, he was apparently in the cutscene where Aramis tells Atrax to prepare the body.
Yeah,
he was there. I mean, that's the hint I'll give. And if you recognize him, good for you. If, like me, you didn't, I mean, fair as well. But so it is interesting to see him back.
Yeah.
Again.
But I hear it's a weird version of him. I haven't looked at the boss encounter yet. I haven't spoiled myself for that, but
that's where Twitter is a horrible thing at times. Where it's like day one and there's a mention. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I put it in our spoiler section, but even though I put it in the spoiler section, I still put a spoiler tag on it. So that way, just in case anyone doesn't want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How much time did we spend in it, Sin? Probably like 8-10 hours or something. We took some break for a little bit, but
a little break, but it wasn't long at all. I'd say probably close to about 10 hours, honestly, maybe close to 10 hours with a few breaks here and there. And
we did good. We did what I thought we would do.
Yeah. I thought we would progress a little bit further, honestly, once we got past the first encounter. And I was in the background. I was watching other people stream it and just kind of keeping tabs on where we were at, relatively speaking. And it didn't seem like we were too far behind after we got the first encounter done. But then as it went on, yeah, it just seemed like we got far behind. That one encounter just kicked our ass.
The contest mode that's where we started getting DPS checked too, of like more deaths and things like that. It's a good and a bad thing having that contest mode. It makes it fair for everyone going in at the same power, but it makes it hard for people like us that are not the A team raiders, but we would do better if we actually had more power,
I mean, that's the thing, because one thing I noticed in some of the wording is it seems like, and like hopping into it, it seems like contest mode sets like withheld our light for every encounter.
Yes. Yeah, it caps you at 12:30, where the final encounter is 12:50, from my understanding, from what I've seen.
That's because it caps at the final encounter at 12:30, but I think it caps us 20 under light every encounter.
Oh yeah, I think I heard that too, but nonetheless, that second encounter is much harder than the first one.
Oh yeah, for sure, but it's just, I mean, it'll probably be easier in the long run, considering
it will. Yeah.
I mean, you'll be at least at power, but I went in. I was able to hop my light up to like 12:29 without artifact, so I was really proud of that. Considering I lost a day because of my freaking internet, but no, and then I like did some grinding. I started like the sword quest, and I was able to pop back in at 12:30 without artifact, and yeah, these freaking everything in that first encounter was still like sword icons to me, and I'm like, this isn't right.
Yeah,
but like I said, I do like contest mode because, like I said, it does. I mean, it makes a fair, like even platform for everyone. But it does make it quite difficult to day one try and figure anything out because everything hurts.
I also like another thing interesting, Clearnite. The first encounter, the quote. It's not a boss per se, but the thing you got to shoot to finish it. It almost has similarities to the Baths encounter in a Leviathan, but much more interesting.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah, but it's very similar to what you're kind of doing there, shooting some inanimate thing to, to pass the encounter. But
which, as we found out, Merciless does not work on those things.
Oh. Yeah, I wonder if it wouldn't work well either. I wasn't using it, but
so it's nothing like Bath then.
No, yeah, because that's
the go-to in the beginning.
Exactly, because someone actually made mention of that, and I had some spare infusion stuff, so I brought my Merciless up, and it's like, I'll give it a shot. I'll be the guinea pig here, and I'm sitting there shooting and shooting and shooting. I'm like, this isn't getting any faster, guys. Merciless isn't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, you pretty much know right immediately on that one if it would or wouldn't, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, and we were going back to old strats too, because like in the room where to get really crowded, when you'd have the Overload and the two other named captains that would come out, we would go back to an old school strat that was working really well with us, Tether and Nova Bomb, and it just cleared it immediately, all that crap. So just a little tip for people, get those.
I was going back to some of those notes because Nova Bomb, I've used Nova Bomb on some of the hunts, and it just seems like Nova Bomb's actually been bumped a little bit, or maybe I'm just not remembering. Because for a while, Nova Bomb was something I used to love using, and then for a while I had to kind of fall away from it because it was nerfed for a while. And I know they bumped it up a little bit again, but it wasn't. It just seems like maybe there's some indirect things that are behaving that way now that they made some other changes. So I'm wondering because you mentioned that because that wasn't really anything you want to do in recent years, and then now it's like seems to be coming back again. So it's interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to test some more and see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, any other quick comments, Des or Sin, you want to give about the raid? I mean, we had fun. We'll be hopping in it some more, I'm sure, to get it clear as soon as we can.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll definitely be hopping in there because, like I said, I mean, I've always liked the mechanic heavy ones, and Lord, does this seem mechanic heavy?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an understatement. It is definitely mechanic heavy.
Yeah.
Well, I think so, but I still have a feeling even the second encounter, it seems confusing. I don't think this is going to be a mechanic that stays confusing, kind of like Crown can stay confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I do like mechanic heavy, but I do like the fact that, because, I mean, we used to say back in the day, yeah, Kingsfall had like mechanics, but a lot of those mechanics usually ended up saying, stand here, shoot at this, stand there,
Right.
shoot at that.
Right.
And this is definitely not that at all. Like it is active mechanics and like.
Well, that's Wrath, right? That's one of the reasons why
Yeah, for
Wrath
sure.
is
Yeah,
that way. Is because they were tired of, I think, people just sitting in there wasn't wells or rifts at the time and just sitting there and or bubble and just kind of sitting and shooting and do those things between Oryx and other ones. As fun as those are, you were kind of sitting in place and doing something. That's why the real counter to that was Wrath, and just that's why it was such a fresh air after playing a year of Kingsfall kind of stuff. You really changed gears, so it really sounds pretty interesting that way. Because a lot of the recent raids, they try to introduce mechanics, but they don't. They introduce you a little bit to it, but they don't kind of like flesh it out enough, and it gets really confusing. I think some of them do well with that, but introduce the technique. Introduce another technique and then build on that within the raid is really the best way to do it. And sometimes they do that really well and other times not so much. So.
Yeah. Well, it's still early. From what we're seeing so far, we like it a lot. Knowing we only have the 3 raids now, but it'll be interesting a few weeks from now what we think about it later on. But so far, it seems like pretty good reception. A lot of the streamers and people on Twitter are also saying positive things about it so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely want to get that clear soon. So right after this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Gotta hop in after the podcast and get it done.
Now, realistically, what do you think most people really should be level-wise now? Like, contest mode is a different animal, obviously, because the reasons. But what would you think most people that are listening would recommend them to do?
I would actually still recommend 1230.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to have a realistic shot. I mean, it's still going to feel better than contest mode because, like I said, if what we think were true, you'll be able to feel that full power of 1230 at least until like the second encounter. Right. But yeah, I would definitely still say 1230 before you really want to have a serious attempt at it.
Right.
And it's early for me to say, but I would guess 1240 because especially if you want to try to do more than just the first encounter, and then the end encounter is 1250. I don't know. It's 1230. I'm sure is like your minimum, but like to have like an easier experience, I would say 1240.
Yeah, and the other thing that I really think is how the drops, because like Garden was a good example. It's like you probably were a little bit under level going into Garden, but as you go through each of the encounters based on RNG, and sometimes that's sucky, but like if you can actually get to the next level, like that was the other thing about Wrath, right? Is like Wrath had a really much higher like eventual boss level, but you got so many good drops during the actual encounters that you kind of like were leveling by 5 to 10 every single encounter, and it got you to at least closer. So if you do if you ran it like 2 or 3 times and you didn't get to the boss or the final boss, but you couldn't beat it, you do it a few more times and you got to a point where then by the final boss it didn't feel as painful. So I'm wondering how does that one feel with this, right?
It'll be early to say. I mean, we only got there's like an opening encounter, but it doesn't drop a chest. Right. I mean, I know there's a hidden chest, but
there's 2 chests there actually.
But they're not. Are they powerful drops? Or
that I don't know. One of them is definitely labeled as a hidden chest, but then it makes mention of a chest, so I don't know if the second chest is powerful or not.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess to be determined. I mean, I'm sure some people know a better answer than us, but
I mean, potentially considering the guides are probably starting to flow out now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, and kudos to whoever was on raid /raid secrets, keeping up with the freaking keeping up with the clears and like writing pretty much making a day one guide, like as
Mhm.
clears and mechanics were being found out.
Mhm.
Like kudos to them. Because that's is like I said in the rating, the only bad thing about day one rating and blind rating in general is I enjoy figuring out mechanics, and banging your head against the wall to figure things out can be fun. But when you're getting down to like missing one little detail that's like
Yeah.
making or breaking you, it
Mhm.
can be a huge like sour against
Mhm.
that encounter to find out what it is. So yeah.
Yeah, or is it a little mini bug, or not a bug necessarily a breaking bug, but just something that kind of makes it harder because it's not
Yeah.
working right? Like tethers, right? In Garden was a good example. Like,
Right.
that was like still kind of flaky, and the building technique still kind of flaky at times. Like if you do certain things weird, it just acts weird. And those are kind of frustrating to have that. So, is it something that you're doing it right, but you're just not doing it right enough, or is it kind of right, but you're missing something? I like to know that I'm maybe missing something. That's the only time I like to sneak a look. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
we got the concept down, but are we missing one thing? Or is it
Exactly.
just 'cause- yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk quickly. Boy, we have so much we could talk about. I mean,
I know,
there's
right?
so much lore we could go through. We'll keep this going week after week, Des, but like you can bring up whatever you want. I do have a quick question though. I mean, tell
Okay.
someone like me that I'm like, I mean, I understand kind of what's going on, but the big exo head in the creation area, that's just
yeah.
AI
Mhm.
version of Clovis. Is that what's going on there?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Mhm.
What it is yes, it is the AI that runs the Deep Stone Crypt. It was apparently awoken when the raid happened, like with the Fallen's tampering with the actual like inner workings of the crypt. So it's technically an AI, but it is an exact memory copy of Clovis Bray the First. So it's
Okay.
technically him, just not a full exo himself. Even though I wasn't expecting him to have an exo head, like that was
And a huge, like, 100-foot
yeah, that was
size one.
yeah, it was like off-putting when you run into him, and I'm just like, wait. I was expecting something like a core like Rasputin or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
considering it was Bray that worked on Rasputin. But yeah, to see a giant exo head was strange.
Well, they did tease that in one of the trailers too. They showed his head.
Ah,
I didn't notice that.
Yes,
Cool.
it was at the end of one of the trailers. It flashed on the screen, and it was that head.
huh.
Hmm.
But yeah,
That's wild though.
But yeah, so that's technically Clovis Bray the First, having survived his ordeal in the Golden Age. Which I mean, if you do the sword quest, you're going to find out the other secret anyway. Which is another thing I love about this. I love about Beyond Light so far is the fact that there aren't that many long-lasting secrets, like in the story or
Are you
in the
talking
game.
about being Clovis Bray? That one?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know if we wanted to spoil it or not.
I
I think a
mean,
lot of people will be doing the quest soon. I won't feel as bad if you want to talk about that.
I mean, like it's if you. I mean, I could
didn't
not
finish it
say, and
yet.
that's fine. But also at the same
Go ahead
time,
if you want.
you will get a direct confirmation once you finish the sword
Yeah.
quest.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Okay.
he tells you outright.
I think I
Yeah.
remember seeing the first hint of that like about a week ago, and then a couple other things confirmed it, and then it seems like the raid like absolutely confirmed it.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that like reading the pre-release Osiris lore and then getting those hints like really is what sent me back into deep diving into the lore again. And I have to say there's a lot, 'cause like I said, there's definitely a lot. Like things make sense now to me. Because I think I teased in our Discord, I think I know why the Traveler chose us now. Which kind of makes sense, but also kind of is anticlimactic. Because it goes back to lore that they introduced in Shadowkeep. Especially like our first messages from the darkness. When they were telling us, when the darkness was telling us about like the creation of everything. What is it? The stories of the garden, the winnower, and the gardener, which the darkness ends up being the winnower. The light is actually the gardener. But yeah, and the fact that the gardener just wanted, I mean, they were playing a game that like mimicked creation with a bundle of code that would end up actually turning into the Vex. And because this code won every time with, I mean, it's essentially sword logic. It exists because it's strong enough to exist. And I love that connection as well. That the darkness is in love with this code because it does this thing. Its existence because it wants to. Its existence because it triumphs over everything else to say, nope, it's my time. So yeah, but the gardener found that boring. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much almost verbatim the terminology, which I freaking adore the fact that the winnower and the gardener use such modern terms, considering they're supposed to be like these pre-existent beings, but the garden being what it is, like everything converges. So they end up talking, because there's also more Shadowkeep lore. When the darkness is talking about how some of the Vex aren't completely his, not like my man Oryx. I love that terminology. But no, so yeah, so the gardener was basically just looking for something interesting and something that promotes complexity and diversity. And this code wasn't going to do it. So the gardener gets this brainstorm. Is like, you know what? I'm going to introduce myself as a rule, and I'm going to run concurrent to the games. That way, I don't like completely interfere. And then the winner was like, yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. And there you go, darkness and light in this game. And it's hilarious because now, like with Shadowkeep and with Beyond Light, we're showing this capability and this willingness to kind of bend the rules and like use the darkness. So I think it's the fact that the Traveler saw this like complexity and it's like, you know what, these guys are interesting. I'm gonna set up right here. So yeah. I mean, it's just like I said, the fact that there are so many like loose ends in the lore, like coming full circle, is like fantastic. I love it.
It is. I'm not even keeping up to date on it, but still, just it's exciting, the story. And there's like I'm looking at the lore tab here. There's like at least 4 or 5 new lore books, maybe 6 if you count the seasonal one, the one with the Crow. I mean, this is amazing. That how much again I keep my opinion kind of back on the discussion we were talking about. I was like, I think this expansion is really, really closer to Forsaken than we think as far as like, we have. I know some people disagree, but I just feel like
maybe in storyline and some of that, perhaps, because I think one of the things we've been wanting for years is really just to get conclusion to things instead of like, okay, here's a new expansion or a season or whatever, and okay, they added another thread. All right, here's another thread. Yeah. Here's another thread. Now they're starting they're starting to kind of bring it back in, and I don't just mean just the Stranger, because that was one that was started to kind of even hint at it, like 6 months ago, like Elsie. Right. So like when you start seeing Elsie and stuff, it's like, oh, okay, cool, got that. When I first read that, I was like, whoa, blew my mind. When you read that thing in the lore, it's like that never clicked with me before. And you read it, and then you start but now they confirm it for those who didn't necessarily read it or didn't read all the the lore things, and I also will give them credit for the new like layout of the lore books. I think so much easier now to read and understand, because just something about pages, just having that page and miss it, it just blocks and pages that really is such a big difference, and it makes it a much better experience so you can actually read. Because I was always one that I wouldn't read until I completed the book or got a little closer, or at least I got one where it was like enough consecutive in the beginning. Whereas if you get the last two, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. I got to go through the first couple pages. And it seems like they're giving you some of those pages a little bit better in order. Like even the Crow ones are kind of starting to come in a little bit better again. So it's very much like Forsaken, I think. Forsaken was very... in terms of how the lore opened up for me, at least, as maybe I was just doing it right or whatever. It seemed very linear in terms of what lore boxes I was opening. It wasn't like in Destiny where it's like, all right, drop this one. It's like, I have no idea what the hell this means. Somebody put it together, and that's why these pages, like, the collective or whatever, came to being, that sort of thing. It's like somebody has to put these together on a big board with yarn, I just don't know what the hell's going on. Now it's like, okay, it's in book form. I get that now.
And definitely a shout out to whoever it was when Warmind dropped. Like, I don't even remember who, but someone made this theory and this connection that, I mean, there were hints out there, sure, but the fact that Elsie Bray was the stranger. Like, shout outs to that person, because, I mean, all they went by legitimately was the fact that Anna and the stranger had like the same symbol on their clothes, and the subtle hints like here and there that they found. It's like, oh, this has got to be it. Right. And it was like, I mean, it was one of those things, kind of like oh god, what was his name? Who Dredger New York really was. Like, until that got confirmation. I mean, but even before the hard confirmation in story, like the lore people still considered it like canon.
Yeah, it was kind of out there on the street. Like, it's sure that she's The
only thing that threw a loop for is when Luke said the stranger's story is done. That always kind of threw me for a loop when he said that. And I don't know if he was just trolling us or if he changed his mind. I think I'm more thinking that. I think he might have just like, all right, let's bring it back and bring it back into the mix again, because it just seemed like, I don't know.
I'm kind of wondering if they could, because of like Activision scheduling and everything, if they basically didn't have time to fully explore.
You're not going to say explain. Please don't say explain.
No, I wasn't going to. I was trying my hardest to like avoid it. It's like, no, don't do the meme. Don't do the meme.
Wait, Clearnite. Her story is done with our version of her.
Right.
I mean, potentially, like, God, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I'm not only Elsie Bray, but I'm Elsie Bray from the Dark Future, and it's like,
Oh,
what?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Because you always felt like she was maybe a time traveler for some reason. I always kind of got that vibe, whether not in the very, very beginning, but like later, it seemed like she was always there, doing something, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, when you start seeing that, and I think my favorite moment in this campaign so far, just the normal story, is doing that one where you're in the Lost Sector where Anna's there. And I actually got a clip of it. It's like and it's not even before you enact it. It's like they're talking ahead of time and she's giving her shit. Like, where you been? And it's like, oh, I'm just going to watch this. This is really cool. Like, that's before you even let them talk.
No, just wait until the next Path of Darkness. The soap opera goes on.
Oh, I love those. Are some of the best things they've added into.
They are.
Right.
Yeah.
And like exos you can scan and you get voice lines. Those are amazing too.
But because Elsie actually tells us, like, now that the giant exo head is there, that it's going to be her and Anna and Clovis having a conversation next. And it's like, of course, I haven't finished it, so I don't know. But everything she says, she does right now. And very quickly, too, which I love. Because, again, like I said, whenever she mentions, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to track down Anna and tell her, like, everything.
Yeah.
The next completion and story bit you get is her and Anna. I'm just like, oh, wow, that was fast.
Right.
They say on the calendar, discover Europa's secrets all the way until it was like the first week of January. I wonder if that means like these little story audio lines that come out. That'd be pretty amazing to keep it going that far down the road.
I know, right?
There's something. It could just be something small, Empire Runs, whatever. But they definitely said on the calendar, discover Europa's secrets all the way through. Like it was like sometime in the 1st of January. So,
but yeah. Lore-wise, this definitely does feel about on the scope. Like lore and story does feel about on the scope as Forsaken. Yeah. I still like. It's hard to say, but also at the same time, the whole exo encounter, what are the exo challenges, and
the challenges,
that kind of stuff that came out. Like, who knows how? Which actually, I don't think there's much more because now Barracks' stuff is fully unlocked to be completable. But still, this is as far as like, I mean, it's definitely bigger than Shadowkeep. I will say that, like, actual activity size. There we go. Especially not to have a big repeatable like escalation protocol type activity that even Shadowkeep had. Yeah. So without that huge,
Yeah.
long, like ritualistic thing to do, it
Mhm.
still feels like more content than Shadowkeep did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think
the
there's
lore and
only
everything is
3.
definitely on par, though.
Yeah, because
I think
even
I
the
saw there's
ghost lore
only
in
3
Shadowkeep
exos.
wasn't really enough. Like even finding those
Yeah.
hidden
Oh,
ghosts were like, okay, these are okay, but they're just little snippets, and you're going through all this trouble. It's like that was what I went for. Like there's no like
Right.
fulfillment of that. Like there's no, I was like, okay, great, all right, whatever, But in this one, when you get to different points and you see the interaction of the actors, that's where you get your fulfillment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's hope the new stuff lasts for a while, because I am, I think you have a similar concern, Clearnite too, but like I had this concern way back, like we have less strikes now, less Crucible maps. There's going to be a point where that's just the stuff that's left to do. I mean, it's already at the point where we're having to grind Crucible and strikes, and Gambit. I do like better now with the changes they made, but
yeah, I do.
and
But
we know
it's
they're
still
adding
Gambit.
back some strikes,
Mhm.
and it's good that they're adding them back throughout the seasons. We're not going to wait till next year, but I just hope we're not like, yeah, this is so strong out of the gate, but then like 2 months in, it's like, well, now the repeatable activities are even worse than before.
Well, that's where I kind of am with the hunt right now. Like the season of the hunt portion of it, I'm like, okay, I got to do this for 3 lore, one of 3 lore, lure completions and stuff. and I'm like, okay, now I got to go do strikes, Crucible, which is broken, or Gambit. Okay, all right, I'll do some Gambit. Like I will say I did go into comp. I have not gone into control or mayhem, because I'm not going to right now.
Oh, mayhem was fun.
They haven't.
I just can't.
Oh, good God,
comp has
mayhem
been better behaved for me, and it's been more bang for the buck. And I've actually done a few survival and some other ones, and I've had some pretty good times, even solo. Like I've been doing that.
Nice.
I can't go into control and I love control. This hurts, like to me to say this, but like I knew this back when I heard Stasis was coming out. It's like, yeah, this is gonna be a mess. We even talked about that in Hoot. It's like, this is very concerning, because any game that has had ice mechanic or slowdown mechanic, it just slows down. I think Gator said this last week, because it was just, anything that slows down my game is not what you really want, and I kind of get why they did it and such, but it hurts. And the other thing that kind of got me a little bit frustrated, and again, this is just not to be pissing on anybody's cereal or anything like this, but like, you couldn't even have a couple new Crucible maps. You couldn't have a couple new Gambit maps, and those are 2 of the 3 pillars that we are now grinding. You're giving us less strikes, and I get those 2 strikes are great. Like I like the new strike, and I actually love pleasant surprise. My biggest surprise so far is the redone, Cosmodrome strike. I was not expecting that to be a completely new strike. Like it really is. It's not her strike anymore. It's the new witch, right? So
yeah.
And I thought, and I thought that was a really nice flip. I was like, oh, that's what this is. I was playing with the game. I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah,
I like what they open up this area. Cool. It makes it a little bit more different. It's still not huge, but it's still different. Throw me a bone. Like that's the kind of stuff I want to. Like maybe go in reverse. Like, can you do that again? Like, let's just. I'll take anything.
That's always
at this
a
point.
fun trope. Is going in reverse. Yeah.
It's like when I. That's what killed me in some of these seasons, and I'll be blunt about it. It's like I'll go back. Okay, go to some strikes. Like, no, I will not. I have done too many strikes. I've got the damn grenade launchers, and I got this other thing. I got the loaded question. I got all this stuff. I'm not doing any more strikes right now. In order to get to the next piece of storyline, that's the other thing that's been way more improved, I think, in this DLC, and hopefully it continues this way. That's the other thing that's frustrating me over this last year is, in order to do some of the stuff for like the Saint 14, for example, I didn't do any of the Saint 14 storyline. And I know everybody's going to say, you really need to do this, because Adavari said it's like, I was at a point in my head that I couldn't, because to get to that point, I had to do stuff that I really hated at that point. Not there anymore. I'm better now, but I can't do this in order to get to storyline. I will watch a damn video, like that's where I was. And that's the thing that like, I felt sad to say that, but that's how I felt, And so I'm really happy that as I'm doing things, the Anabray moment happens and this other moment, and then going to the Cosmodrome. And, I also did the Beyond Light. The new light, if anybody hasn't done that yet, I really encourage you to do it, because I was, and the only other slam I'll give is like, whoever thought of the UI for that one really needs to be taken back and said, why did you make it so that you could only see that one little kiosk when you turned a certain angle? Like I had to look it up. I had to look it up. It's like, how do I do the Beyond Light? I kept going to the exotic one because it keeps lighting
Right?
up, right? Like the exotic one's
yeah,
always
the one
blinking
left
and
of,
lit. I'm like, I must be
okay.
missing something here because why is this lit? Again, the stupid bug. But like, it's like it's always lit. Why is this lit? That's where I thought you'd pick up the new light story was. I had to read up. It's like next to the postmaster. I'm like, what? And I would look at it. I loaded in. I'm like, looking, I don't see it. And then you turn around and then it lights up. And then you see the text. It says, check the campaigns. I'm like, guys, come on. You needed to make this a waypoint or something. Like you needed to highlight this because I, as a 4 or 5 year player of Destiny, couldn't freaking figure out where that was. Maybe it's just me being dense, but sorry, I just didn't see it. But it was amazing. I was like, this is a great experience. I recorded it. I posted just to kind of have it, for my own posterity and stuff. It's like, this is really great. Like this is what they needed for years for a new player. And I appreciated it, and it was really neat. And the fact that you can actually get 3 or 4 season levels from doing it and some other things. And yeah, you get Risk Runner at the end. They revised the Risk Runner campaign story. Risk Runner, I was like, well, you think about it, it's like, if you told me ahead of time I was getting Risk Runner, I'd be like, really? But the way that they modified that is like, hey, this is really cool. It's changed. It made sense. Like it was really neat. Similar, but different. That's enough for me. I'm good. And I got storyline as I went through it, right? You got a little bit of story and stuff. So when the hunt dropped and I was like, okay, now go do Strikes, Gambit, and Crucible to charge this thing up. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And I did it for a little bit, but then I was like, okay, and you can only do up to 3. And I made sure I was doing enough that I could get 3 because I don't want to have to keep doing it, right? So I was like, all right, well, this is cool. And Gambit, like you said, I like Gambit. I like actually the changes to that. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it's like, I thought they did a nice change to it. I think it's definitely improved.
It is good pacing. It doesn't feel so long anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can still get frustrated, of course, but
sure. Mm-hmm.
The pacing at least is good. That if you have a bad game, at least it's not forever, and you at least have a chance with the primeval fight now of not just taking forever like in Prime.
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't have the long 3 rounds like in regular Gambit. So
yeah, and it doesn't seem to be quite as prohibitive in terms of the Prime where you need to get the envoys down. Like you do need to get them down to get them like weaken them, but it doesn't. I don't think they're invulnerable like they were in Prime. Like they just makes it really harder. Like you still want to get the envoys down, but I think you can still do damage as it takes forever, like regular Gambit, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, but then they respawn and like, oh, okay, they're back again. All right, that's probably you have to do this. So I like that mechanic, and it seems like the invasions have been either I'm playing with groups that the invaders have not been doing that, or they've scaled back the amount of invasions. I know they dropped the number when the primeval is loaded, but it seemed like before all you would have is invasion over invasion over invasion. So I think they probably scaled that back, which makes an improvement. I think. I mean, all the invaders like some of our guys like Drez is a good example. Like he used to love invasion. He was amazing at it. And he still is, but like it's one of those things after a while. It's like, all right, already. I just want to get this over with. Stop with the invading. I don't care if I win or lose. I just want to get rid of the invading over. I just want to get my milestones done.
Yeah, and I want to go back real quick too. One good news on the Empire hunts is they do. Minor spoiler, but they do open up and get harder, and there's even match-made ones that are going to be later on. So that's good news for that. But I think we can all agree that hopefully we won't be in a point where, Strikes, Crucible, and Gambit. I mean, that's even in the times where the game has been dead and that's all there is to do. That's at least where I stay interested in the raids. But I can see why people would drop off if, Strike. I mean, if you love Gambit, you're going to be in it. We have people in our clan that'll run Gambit every night. If you love Comp and Crucible, then that's good. Although I'm sure you're salty. There's less maps. But
you still need them anyway for these ornaments for Adored. So that's
I know, but like, we need like.
Well, the other thing, Gambit also you have new armor, right? Like, so there's new armor. There's a weapon or two, but like the armor's new, so that's the other reason I was grinding for it. It's like, okay, I'll grind for some new armor. That's kind of neat. Like, let's have a refresh for other things, but that's at least there a little bit of refresh. So,
but because Gambit, Crucible, and Vanguard actually have new armor.
The Vanguard too, because I'm trying to think what Vanguard's.
All 3. Yeah, I mean it's basically the same book, but it's slightly different. Yeah,
it's the same style across all 3 of them, but they're all like branded, of course. Vanguard, Crucible.
Well, it's kind of like Dead Orbit and what was it, Wildwood? Those kind of things where it's like changed but named differently and changed a little bit to some degree.
So I mean, it's like having 3 sets of armor, but it's almost kind of like when they would do ornaments, but now it's just actual armor.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be fair, also with transmog coming, I guess their focus on ornaments is going to be lessened.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was actually surprised. I thought, and I know I probably missed an article and stuff, but I thought transmog. I know he said it was coming later, but at some point. But I was also surprised that it didn't come in this because there was so much to clear out the vault. There was all the emphasis to clear out your vault, clear your vault. Because I just went through, and first day I ended up clearing a lot out for various reasons, like the 1060 reason. But still, I started. It was hurtful, but I did it, and I'm hoping that a lot of those things that I like the look of will come back in transmog. But I don't have that like. Yeah, they said it, but I don't have that comfort yet until I see it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So,
yeah. Well, we have a lot to look forward to. We'll see how they keep it rolling. Hopefully, the Christmas event will be interesting this year. Not exactly the same as like the last few years.
We're gonna bake cookies. You know it. Baking cookies.
I mean, that's. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Even if it's the same.
Totally baking cookies.
It'd be nice if it's just something kind of, the Halloween and the Christmas thing has been almost exactly the same for the last few years. And are they going to just keep that for the lifetime of Destiny, or are they ever going to change it?
Unless they bring back, that was the other thing that I thought was a little strange lore-wise.
Sparrow. Wasn't that a Christmas thing?
Yeah, it was actually. It was this time of year.
Yeah, SRL.
SRL. But I don't think they're ever coming back with that. I would love to. I love that mode.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough hate for it that it's not coming back. I think, I think it's hate at Bungie because it just seemed like there's always a negative connotation to it there. I don't know why, but it's like I think it was somebody's like intern's pet project went live and it was like, hey, people love this. Let's try something here. Because there was only 3 maps, so I don't think they really invested enough time into as much as fun as they were. But I think that was one that I'd love to see, but they're not focusing on. Because I friggin' do more races than I will do some of these other pillars right now. Give me a race.
Because
I'll do a few races.
They are emphasizing sparrows more with the change of they're all fast summon now, and also they're kind of being used in the raid again, at least in the first encounter. I don't know. Maybe it's probably not happening like you said, but they are emphasizing sparrows more, and who knows?
Yeah, but we said that during Scourge came out too. It was like, oh look, there's a race. We're gonna do this. It's like
you're right.
Don't fall into the trap. Hopeful,
don't
but
make me cry.
I know. Just burst the bubble now, and then when it comes out, then we'll be surprised. But I just don't feel it. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, boy, we're having a good discussion. We better start slowly wrapping it up here. Was there any other topics, Clearnite, that we didn't talk about tonight, or any other experiences in the game or whatever before we kind of...
No, the only other thing, and I think they hopefully addressed it in the last TWAB, was the loot was my only concern, like the sunsetting. I was very much on board the sunsetting train until I saw what was sunset coming back. So I was like, I raged a little bit in our Discord about it, but it's like, I think they just cut too deep, but hopefully the change on Thursday where they said they're bringing stuff back from season 11 and 10, I think will help with that. But I was really, and I expect some of these things, but I kind of made this point of like, there's new large machine gun now that you can get on Europa, and it's actually one I got, for me, it's a god roll. Like boom, okay, this will do. But like the very fact that the only large machine gun that was viable in the whole storyline that you could use was basically Thunderlord. And so that was because everything else was gone. Everything else was like 1060. I think that at least all the large machine guns that I had were all like 1060 maxed, so I couldn't really get anything. I think Seraph was maybe one of the ones I heard that wasn't, but I didn't have that one. But I had all the others. I even had Avalanche. Like I had Avalanche, and that still wasn't like people had Avalanche. That was my solar LMG. But so that was my only concern. Is I'm hoping that they do hear that, because I think they cut too deep with Shadowkeep. Like the very fact that we played Shadowkeep a year ago and all the weaponry that's there that you could still even get today is not viable. Like I turned in a couple bounties just because I was doing some altar. EP's gone, so now altar is your new like kill thrall and other things to do things, sort of grind. But I was kind of annoyed that none of those that were dropping were going to be viable. Yet I got stuff from the Chattering Bone that I can still use, which is way older, but I can use that. And I love the gun, but why can I use a Chattering Bone, but an old drop Chattering Bone,
Because it's from the raid. They said a year, but the caveats are raids. Raids go longer than a year, but I know they said a year and we all understood it, but at the same time, it's like, well, Shadowkeep was a big expansion. Even though it's been a year now, it's like, that's really what a year means. It's like,
and that's actually, and it's still available and you still can do it. And that's the other problem I have is if it's something that you can actually do, Like there's things that are blues are dropping from doing activities around the planet. You can't give me a higher level like moon weapon. That's my only. So I'm hoping. I'm trying to remember back. I think that was probably before season. I think season 10 and 11 are after Shadowkeep, but maybe they'll drop a couple of those because that was my only concern. But that seems to be maybe resolved. So that was my only other thought. What you guys thought about the sunsetting is. I thought it cut a little too deep. As much as I want it to be sunset, I think they cut too deep on some of this stuff, personally.
Well, it's a valid concern. It doesn't personally affect me, but I always try to be open to what other people are saying about it too. And I do think it's good that, in the latest TWAB, that's where it was, right? Where they said they're going to be bringing
Thursday
some more into the pool. Yep.
Yeah. So that's good. I think they heard enough feedback with that. And that's the thing. That is one thing I do like is, Bungie is one of the few developers that actually do listen to active feedback. Sometimes I think they listen to, too much feedback and they kind of lose sight of what they want to do. But I think sometimes the streamers and stuff are a little bit more vocal and that's who they cater to. So I'm kind of happy that they start to listen, I think, to more of the common man, if you will, or person, maybe. And I think that's the thing. The loot is probably where they're opening that back up is probably where we did probably cut too deep. So I'm happy about that. So that made me feel better. So. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm feeling, encouraged, like the one thing I found is, like we just said, is, when the new strikes come back, there's a few more strikes that are being added. The Septics, I think, is the one that's coming back, right? Septics
and
Prime.
Fallen Saber too.
And Fallen, yeah, I try not to think about Fallen Saber, but maybe if they redo that one. Yeah. Nightfall, Solar, Saber Shivers, right. But actually, no, it's true. I will take that one too. I will take it. Like I'll take any of them in there. And so, that's the thing that you got to get some stuff that's in the grind because I do find that my daily grind is better right now, but I worry about repeating the season. So we'll kind of have to see about that. So,
fair enough.
Slam dunk on the storyline and the voice lines and stuff, man.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Sin, I know you've been a little quiet in the conversation, but I must know we need a live update. What are you doing in the game right now?
Oh, I've just been running back and forth doing random objectives. I finished all the stasis class on my Titan for the next aspect or whatever that needed to be, or fragment or whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. That needed to be unlocked, so that's now done. And now I'm working on my Warlock, trying to get the stasis class fully unlocked with that.
So proud of you.
Yeah, still haven't done anything with my hunter yet.
As I called it, pack mule. No, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, hunters. I know.
All right, excellent. And this is an ongoing bit now. We have to ask you what you're doing in the game.
No, definitely.
It's all good.
He is currently exploring Europa in the Castelia Macola. I don't know if I spelled that right or said that right. So, and that's the other thing, the Cosmodrome. Man, I was doing Thunderdome and the Thunderlord and the Thunderlord and the Cosmodrome. That just brought back so many good memories. And I was just in a repeat pattern that I didn't even realize what I was doing. I was like, holy crap! I just was in the areas where I was doing the divide and the other stuff. I was like, man, this is like old times, and it's nice because on PC it made it even better. So
nice. Well, we would Clearnite, tell us any fun drinks you've had lately, because we've asked you favorite dessert before and all that, so we gotta move on to something else. Any fun beers or other drinks you've had recently?
There's been a couple of different beers, but actually it's funny because we did have with everything even, we still had a family vacation in Tennessee, and I've never been a big moonshine fan. Like, it's okay, but there's different flavor ones. But my wife and her dad and brother, they went while I was watching the kids, and she went over to the Tennessee Moonshine Factory or whatever it's called, Moonshine Distribute. And she brought a couple back, and this one is dangerous but amazing. And it's basically a coffee liqueur style moonshine, which sounds like completely contradictory, but basically stronger version of like a Kahlua or a Bailey's. And you just drink it either straight or you could put in some coffee. That stuff is actually really amazing, because everybody talks about like moonshine, apple pie. Moonshine is like amazing. It's good, but after a while you get kind of tired of apple pie. At least I do, and I love it as much. But still, that was probably my favorite thing recently. Is she started doing this, and one of the other things that I just found is a mixology site that actually will do an old fashioned. I've been kind of on an old fashioned kick recently too, and so is my wife. So I found
those are good, yeah.
A little, I don't know if they call it a crate, like a mixed crate or whatever, but I got something for a special holiday gift coming up. So We have
cool.
a personal thing that we joke about is called we call it December's Eve, and it's a thing for us just when we were first dating and such. And she was one we were waiting for Christmas, and we didn't think we were going to see each other in Christmas, so she was one that wanted to always open gifts. So on November 30th or 31st, I remember days they're in this month. We made a joke, it's like, hey, maybe we should open up a gift, one from each other, and we'll call it December's Eve, as opposed to Christmas, Eve or something. And it stuck. So we always have this December's Eve gift that we do, and she's actually even brought the kids into the mix too now, like to get something for them. So she doesn't listen to podcasts anyway, but like I got a mixology thing that I ordered, as well as a couple of little miscellaneous things for our December's Eve gift. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've been kind of drinking. But yeah, a couple different beers too that I've been doing. But that's been my potion recently, has been some of that coffee flavored liqueur. That's been I call it liqueur, but it's moonshine. It's really good.
Sin, have you made your new Mountain Dew moonshine yet? I'm waiting for that.
No, but I did add a aging barrel to my Christmas list. So one day, after Christmas, I will get that.
Nice. Well, we had an excellent conversation tonight, Clearnite. Always pleasure having you on.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Come on and give us your thoughts and everything. And maybe we'll have you on sooner than a year next time, or maybe not. Who knows? But we always love having you on, is what I'm saying. So
backhanded compliment. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, basically, that's what I got out of it.
Hey,
no, I do appreciate it. But it's definitely.
I always think of you when the new DLCs are coming out. So
No, definitely. And you kind of we kind of didn't talk about it, but like that's one of the things I do kind of miss this sort of medium of podcasting. We've kind of talked about pre-show, but like we're kind of on a hiatus right now with life and everything. It's been kind of difficult to podcast, and I give you guys a bunch of kudos. This is not me sucking up to try and get on more often than a year, but seriously,
that's what I gathered out of it.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe it works, but like between you guys and Guardian Down, like being able to do weekly, high quality podcasts, where you have guests come in, and even when you talk at your own, two or three folks having a good conversation, and then you bring a guest on. Be able to do that week in, week out, just personal experience. It's very draining. So definitely kudos to you guys and keep it up. Just I know it's been building, and definitely put a lot of hard work into doing that, and it shows. So definitely be proud of that, because it is tough, especially when you start getting you guys up to 87 now, right? So
yeah, 87. I think our contract only goes through 88, so we'll see. But
made another thing. You would laugh, but there were a couple of places I was going to be going on at one point when I was more consistently podcasting that ended up going down. So it's like, all right, that's.
Oh yeah, I was scheduled on that one too. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I was like, love you, Jay, but but there was a couple of them, and then lost episodes. I've always joked about like being probably one of the first things I've done is like. You've got 2 or 3 backups, right? Because, we had a few different lost episodes, and I've been on a couple with like JSG and Elmer. We were like, always joke is like, all right, lost the episode again. Are you freaking kidding me? It's all joking, but like, it's one of those things you're like, oh, okay, did the recording work? And that was always my fear as podcast recording. And I was the one that doing the production and stuff. It's like, all right, did it come through? Okay, good. All right, we're good. And I had like 2 or 3 backups. So I was always paranoid about this stuff. So it's a lot of work that you guys are doing, so I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. And I think it's, believe it or not, there's like so many new lore Destiny podcasts. There's even another one I'll add to our list soon. I just heard about on Twitter. Friends of Brotherhood of the Nine podcasts in, what's his name?
Truth Lives.
Truth Lives, yes. A friend of his or someone in his clan, they just started a lore Destiny podcast. And if you look at the list now, there's lots of lore Destiny podcasts. So I kind of like, and I really appreciate, because I don't have the time to keep up on the lore. So thank you, Des. But I like how we have a general talk too, because in case people are looking for just also what we're doing in the game, which maybe is boring to some people, maybe not. I don't know, but that's what we like to do. So I think we can have a good mix, add in segments and have things we talk about, but I don't know if I'm trying to say we're going to become a generalist podcast. I mean, we already kind of were, but it works for us right now. So,
and it's one of those things that if you have a good conversation and it's fun to get together, it definitely is a challenge. Like people who haven't done it don't really kind of get it. They just think you record and go and that's it. And it's it's definitely something that takes a lot of energy, and especially for those that are like kind of a little bit more perfectionistic. When you start hearing certain sound things, you start playing with it. I mean, I've watched some of Sin's streams where he's doing it. I'm like, wow, man, you're even looking more than I am with some of these things, but it's like, appreciate it, like there's a lot of work to do in it. So it's, to be able to do it week in and week out is definitely something to be proud of. So,
yeah. Well, thank you. Again, we don't know if we'll keep it going, but for now we are.
Yep. And it's one of those things we started going like bi-weekly and then start like monthly. And then just with everything recently, like I do like to get back to it. It's just, there are times where I've even been admitted, like, we're definitely Destiny and generalist both, but kind of have to have a lot more of other conversations too, besides just Destiny and certain of the lulls, I think, and unless you really get into the lore. And I think that's where that's great to have lore cast, because that's where you really get it. Because, when you start going to like 20 weeks of rivals, it's like, all right, what are we talking about this time? It's like,
we talk about the frustrations of the game.
Yeah. I'm not grinding anymore. I haven't been in the damn game in a while. It's one of those kind of things is tough. And we started ours when it was the Curse of Osiris. So, we knew what we were doing at the time, I guess.
We just talk about what Sin's doing in the game.
Yeah.
And everyone's bored.
Well, that too. And then there was a lot of people at the end of this last season that had not finished a lot of things or came into the game as new lighters and didn't have a lot of things completed. Yeah. And that was fun going back and to be able to help them. I ran Outbreak. Of course, I needed to run it for the Catalyst for myself anyway, the heroic versions. But we helped people get Whisper, Outbreak, raid completions. There's a lot of people that needed raid completions, and that's always fun. Seeing somebody get their first time it's exciting.
Yeah, no, definitely. Or when you get into a drop, Fun fact: I still never got Anarchy after all the damn times I did Scourge. I was like, oh man, now I can go get it. I'm just debating about which one I'm going to pick up. It's probably going to be Anarchy. But there's two things I think in the list that I haven't gotten. I think it was Anarchy and one other, and I don't remember what it was. So I'm terrible, but I'm not going to bother with that. But Anarchy was the one that I really wanted for a while, and I got my Jotun was bugged. So for years, that Jotun one's been kind of sitting, and I couldn't get completion on it, and I just wasn't restarting it again. So those are the two that I'm kind of choosing for. So I'm curious what you guys think. If between those two, should I pick up the Anarchy or the Jotun?
Anarchy, but
Anarchy.
It's not as quick as you may think. I even think the economy is a little too high for it. You have to get a fair amount of those. What was it?
Yeah,
150
spoils of war.
Yeah, and one.
I like that concept though. I like the fact that they added that. Yeah,
but someone was doing the math, and I forget how many raids you'd have to run before you could have enough spoils of war to buy it.
I mean, it's like what, 5 spoils per drop, or per chest or whatever, or something like that. So it's a hefty cost, but also at the same time, at least, like I said, there is a clear path for it, though.
Yeah.
Right? It might be a nightmare, but
Last Wish is so easy these days that you could just kind of run that, a bunch.
Yeah.
No, definitely, and I appreciate that too. It's one of those things and I know there was one night, I think out of Arifine got his, but they were running Scourge repeatedly in one night, and he finally got it after the 5th. And of course, he's newlywed actually, and congrats to him. Back in the summer, he was married, and his wife also plays other games, but she plays Destiny and other games, and she got her Anarchy, I think, first drop. It's just like, son of a gun.
That's how it works.
I had so many and it was also PS4 and PC, and all my PC stuff is the stats that are being used. So I don't even want to think about how many I ran on PS4 before it switched over to PC and lost all my history there. So yeah, that was painful. So, but yeah, at least they gave you that option. And I know a lot of folks are kind of salty about the fact that they would grind that and you can just buy it now. But like you said, it's not an easy buy. It's not like you go in there and just pay Glimmer or Silver or Bright Dust and you got it. You still have to do some work. So that's kind of good.
No, I think it's a good what they did. I mean, personally, I would think maybe they could bring down the cost just a little bit, but it's not, at least it's not too overburdened. And you're right. At least it's a very set path now. It's not RNG anymore. It
it's
makes
not
sense
out of reach, basically.
Or at least those, yeah.
All the older stuff, I'm fine with the Not Forgottens, the Luna's Hell, all this stuff. They're old weapons now anyways. Why? It makes sense. They're just available now. So
No, definitely. And probably the number of times run the Scourge or other things, I probably would be able to buy Anarchy by now if I had that under the belt. But it's all right. I'll just rerun some stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure new raid, that's the thing. You're going to end up doing a few more of those, and depending on how they drop, if they drop per raid completion, right? So maybe they'll change the raid level around.
Multi-Glass is coming out sometime this year too. Well, this
Yes.
Destiny year. Yep.
Destiny year, yeah. So I am looking forward to that, obviously. So I'm curious to see how much they might change that to that. And if Venus then becomes an area, I'm curious to see what they do. Are they going to bring back some portion of Venus, or are they going to, because that had the open area, or are they going to bring you right into the center without the plates outside? I'm curious to see what they do with that. So.
Excellent. Well, good discussion. We'll keep this going, keep this conversation going. And again, so thankful to have you on tonight. Why don't you give everyone your deets, contact information, wherever you want people to know about how to find you?
Sure, no problem. So you can find me pretty much on all the game networks as Clearnite. And the only place is Twitter, where I still have the squatter. So it's Clearnite_. So Twitter is Clearnite_, and everywhere else, pretty much PSN, Xbox, Epic, Steam, etc. is all Clearnite. And you can also... We still have the Hoot Dawg podcast up, so hootdogradio.com will actually still get you to some of our archive stuff. And I do hope to get back to that again. It's just a matter of getting that timing down and just figuring that out. But it's not something that's dead, but it's fade a little. But and you can also find our links to our Discord as well on hootdogradio.com too. So you can come and find our clan and our Discord and stuff, and definitely always welcome to have anybody who's cool. As long as you're not a jerk and you're present and you're pleasant. Welcome to come in.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Des, where can people get a hold of you?
You can find me, as always, at Twitter at DES_Raven, as well as the myriads of Discords that I'm currently lurking in. Sin?
Should we follow you in all of those Discords too?
I mean, if you want, but I might. I might call you a creeper at that point in time, but
Oh, I'm a creeper.
Oh, man. Well, I guess you could say we could cash you outside.
Yeah. How about that?
So you can find me on twitch.tv/SynMedia. Sin is CYN, and over on Twitter at Sin_Media. Kingsley Macklemore.
Well, you can't find me as that name, but you can find me as Kingsley Mac on most of the places. Also on Twitch, where I stream occasionally, mostly just when we're raiding. However, on Twitter, I also have a different name. It is MC Kingsley, because Kingsley Mac is taken by some guy that doesn't do anything, also on Twitter.
Is that frustrating?
Yeah.
It's like,
so whatever.
You're not using it. Give it up.
And just a reminder, we give this information every couple episodes or so. We have a Discord also. I'll put the link in the show notes in case you just happen to listen to our podcast but aren't in the Discord. Please join to continue the conversation. Also, if you're interested in our clan, you can feel free to join. We just ask that you join the Discord and introduce yourself. Other than that, you can find our show on Twitter as The Guardian Hub or on our website as theguardianhub.com.
The best hub on the net.
Thank you, Sin. Well, Clearnite, thanks again for coming on tonight.
Thank you,
we hope to hear from you again soon, and hopefully everyone can find Clearnite in the Discords and keep the conversation going. It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Cheers. Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And
thanks, Clearnite.
So
Thanks
the
for
whole
having me.
Clovis and Banshee thing, like all I picture is Ace Ventura. Clovis and Banshee, Banshee and Clovis, Clovis and Banshee, Finkel and Einhorn, Einhorn and Finkel.